All right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and I want to start off today by pointing something out. Bonds are down 19% since August 10th, 2020, while Bitcoin is up 161%. We are really watching in the making, in real time, the maturity of this brand new asset class and what I believe is the opportunity of the decade. Bitcoin, with a market cap of 600 billion just over, sits at around the number 10 spot in this list of top 12 companies by market cap. And at 600 billion valuation for a global store of value, a monetary network that is decentralized and distributed, there is still a 5x to go for the price of Bitcoin, or the market cap, I should say, before it can start to begin to challenge Apple's whopping $3 trillion market cap. And speaking of these companies, remember, all of these companies still hold 0 Bitcoin in their corporate treasury reserves. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Facebook. As the Bitcoin price continues to increase, as the network continues to be adopted, I'm sure that these companies are going to start to feel like they are missing out on the type of opportunity and the type of wealth preservation method that the likes of MicroStrategy and Tesla are benefiting from currently. Remember, no matter where you started to DCA into Bitcoin, this is dollar cost average, of course, you are in profit. Every single person, regardless of whether you started at the absolute top of the last bull run. For most people, time in the market is more important than timing the market, and simply allocating the same amount of fiat currency to Bitcoin in the same and consistent time intervals, whether that is daily, weekly, monthly, you are able over a long enough time period to near guarantee profit. The sentiment at the moment is that everyone is bullish. However, the quarterly futures basis says otherwise. We also have the relative strength index for Bitcoin continuing to slowly but surely increase in strength. And this is starting to look a lot like the runs we had seen before massive blow off top moves occur in the price of Bitcoin. The MVRVZ score, 7-day moving average, depicted down here in orange, shows that we have most probably confirmed a bottom and that there is significant room between here and the red zone at the top. And when we perform cost basis analysis, what we can see is, again, we have all the similar and familiar signs of a bottom being in, which tells us that we likely are not coming back down to test the lows. It doesn't preclude a move back to the lows, but the odds and the probabilities are stacked in the favor of further upside for the price of Bitcoin. If we invert the chart of Bitcoin, so this is Bitcoin's chart upside down, would you long this chart? The trend is clearly down, telling us that because this is an inverted trend, the trend is clearly up, and therefore it's reasonable and sensible to expect further downside on this chart, which of course translates to further upside in the price of Bitcoin. To entertain lower numbers here, you would really need to see this do something like this and break out of this range. That would of course put the price sub 15.6k from the FTX low. I personally don't think we're likely to see that. Over in traditional finance, higher for longer. This is the triple Qs, the proxy for the Nasdaq. July has historically been a killer month for the index over the past 2 decades. With an 85% win rate and an average return of north of 3%, it's reasonable from a statistical and historical point of view to expect higher Nasdaq prices during the month of July. I'm seeing a lot of this. This is the new 2008 fractal, isn't it? So for the past sort of year, maybe a year and a half, as we were coming down in this bear market, the 2008 fractal that showed this massive plunge due imminently to occur absolutely dominated the Twitter space. Everyone was calling for this. And of course, as we have trended up from the lows in October, I've been talking about cracking these highs, getting up into this neighborhood here, and at that point we will be seeing all of the bears be forced to capitulate to the upside. So I don't think that's happened yet. I still think there's some scope for a drop into a weekly cycle before we can start to move higher. But I do think we are getting dangerously close now to that zone where we're going to see all of the last remaining stubborn bulls and shorts have to flip long and capitulate near the top. Of course, if you're not new here, you'll know that not only have we been expecting this move to all-time highs, but we're also expecting an imminent rollover and a big deflationary bust shortly thereafter. I'm not really championing this move here. I'm not really championing the idea that we just get a correction that then proceeds higher. Now, of course, whatever the case is, we will be able to take advantage of it. If we do indeed get a run to all-time highs, we'll be expecting that rollover and a breakdown. Now, if we don't get something as sharp and as deflationary bust-like as I think we're going to get, then of course we can draw a trend line on this shorter term correction, this shallower correction, and buy the break just in the same way that we drew a trend line and bought the breakout for the markets coming out of the bear market of 2022. So in either situation, in either scenario, we're going to be prepared for all outcomes. And that includes, by the way, seeing a rollover from here. So when we get a technical breakdown, if that was to occur, if we were to get a technical reason to exit the trade, then Camel will become super bearish. But as it stands, all the while we continue in an uptrend, all the while we continue to make higher highs and higher lows, it's difficult for me personally to want to be short or to want to flip to a bearish posture and bearish bias just yet. So of course, most of the markets were closed yesterday for the 4th of July. We have very little change so far. So here's gold. I think we can say with confidence that this indeed was the cycle low. So we'll move this up to mark that there. I've measured out another 22-ish days, 22, 24, something like that. So perhaps we'll get one final move down lower into that cycle low, and then we can break out. But of course, as I've been saying all along, if we are ready to break out of here and do something like this, then it's time to not only close this short, but flip long and buy this breakout. In the short term, I've choked my stop up halfway down. So my stop currently looks like this. I've taken a lot of the risk off. And the reason for that is simple. If we can make it all the way up here to get stopped out, then what do we have? Of course, a breakout of this downward sloping blue resistance line. And therefore, I'll be looking to get long as soon as we can close a daily candle outside of this downward sloping blue resistance line. So for now, we're right into resistance. We can't assume it's going to break out. We have to wait for the market to tell us that. Otherwise, we could, of course, run the risk of getting rejected here and rolling over one last time before we go. I do believe if this scenario occurs, that will be the last daily cycle decline, and we will break out of here and we will attack a run to the all-time high and then break it. That's what I think, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself for now. I want to let the market tell me how to move, and so far I'm going to continue to push this short all the time. We are into and underneath resistance. Like I said, break out of there and we will close the short and open a long. Here's silver. So again, right into resistance. It's not quite even made it there yet, and it's already kind of looking like maybe it's not got the strength it needs to break out. So anything can happen. Again, it would be just as wrong to assume it's going to get rejected and roll over as it is to assume it's going to break out. So the point of these trend lines is to give you an area on the chart to manage your risk accordingly. So for now, we're in no man's land. This could really go either way, and that includes breaking out or getting rejected. So we want to let the market prove to us which one of those two scenarios it's going to undertake. If, of course, it breaks out. If it breaks out here, then we'll just move the long up, put a stop below this low, and then we'll see what the market can give. We'll be targeting at least $30 for the breakout. But there's also the chance, of course, that it is going to get rejected and roll over, and therefore we'll take the breakout from lower down when it occurs. As always, one day at a time, and we'll see what the market can give. It'll be interesting to see from a stock market perspective, do we close these gaps? Do we come down here, close these gaps, and then reverse again? Or are we just going to roll over from here and have to spend the rest of this cycle in a decline before we find that daily and weekly cycle low? Or, of course, are we going to continue to make higher highs and higher lows above the midpoint of this cycle, which would be day 20, and therefore we can expect a less severe correction into that daily and weekly cycle low for the S&P 500. So anything and everything is on the table here. It's kind of the same deal for the NASDAQ. Are we going to close this gap and then go a much more significant correction, maybe a touch of the yellow or the red in the meantime? Or are we going to fill this gap and then blast off and do normal NASDAQ things for the month of July? Anything and everything is on the table. It's sort of the same with the Dow. I'm not really interested in here until we can break out, but if we can indeed break out of this range I've got drawn in blue, then on a daily closing basis, that'll be a long from me. We have massive closes from the crypto related equities. Riot, nice strong breakout, as you can see here. So happy days there. MicroStrategy also doing really well, as you can see, and Marathon on a 15 handle. So we can't complain here, can we? Long and strong, continue to push. Tesla looks like it's got a gap to backfill potentially. Will it do that, or are we just going to see this uptrend? Either way, we're long, we're strong, and we continue to push. And the same is true of Apple. We've got some gaps to potentially backfill, but all the while we're above the trend lines. We'll continue to push these longs. Also still pushing an Ethereum long. Not much more to say about that. XRP still hanging around no man's land. Not much more to say about that. And finally, Bitcoin. Bitcoin is right in the neighborhood now where we could expect to see perhaps some form of flush, some form of stop run, and then a reversal. If we can get that, I'm more than happy to look for a swing, add along from down here with a stop below wherever the swing is, and then see what the market can give. We have to be open though, as I keep saying over and over again, to seeing a consolidation that breaks to the upside, in which case we could put a long on a breakout and a stop will go below there. For me personally, hard to argue anything other than bullishness from this chart. We've had some nice moves, a nice correction. We've come back up to the range highs, and now we're consolidating before what is most probably a move to the upside. Of course, we have to be open to seeing a quick shakeout before we go. That's what Bitcoin likes to do. But ultimately, we seem to just be doing exactly what we did before, which was this sort of slow grind up before we make our way up, form another base, and then start to go really and truly parabolic. So overall, things don't look too bad. If I draw a trend line under here, right, you'll notice this seems insanely steep, but Bitcoin is more than capable of doing this sort of thing. So of course, invalidation for this will be if we break down from this trend line or start to go sideways, or if we break down and start to move down much lower towards the lows. But unless we do either of those two things, then we are indeed making higher highs, higher lows. We're in an uptrend, and you just have to respect that. So that's it from me. Halfway through the week already. I hope you found value here today. I hope you found this somewhat useful. In the meantime, take care from me. All the best. Cheers. Bye.